Welcome back to the channel, guys. So in today's episode I have a full care guide for the rubber tree or the Ficus Elastica. I'm going to be showing you everything you need to do to have a happy and healthy plant in your house. The Ficus Elastica comes in many forms. We've got the Ficus Elastica Robusta here and the Ficus Elastica Tineke, a couple of examples to my left. There's also rarer varieties such as the Melanie and the Belize, which the Belize is similar to this guy but slightly more redder leaves. So I've had my Robusta here for about 4 years and I've had the Tineke for about a year and a half. So I've got some good experience with these plants and I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know. So in its natural habitat, this plant is actually a tree, a very large tree, can grow quite big. When we bring it inside, we can keep a check on the size of it. So you'll probably find this in your local store or nursery about 2 feet tall. It'll normally have one main stem growing through the middle of the pot with these striking leaves kind of growing off it. So, like I say, a tall tree in the wild, but it doesn't grow too large in our homes. This is a relatively fast growing plant if you have it in the right conditions and you follow these following steps. So the first thing we need to talk about, and maybe one of the most important, is lighting. So I keep mine in my dining room, which is an east facing room in the house. So I keep it next to my window. These plants will grow a lot quicker if you give them as much light as possible. This guy particularly, the Robusta, can tolerate lower light conditions. It'll quite happily sit there and be happy, but it won't put out much new growth. It'll be quite slow to grow. So I had this guy in my bedroom upstairs, about 2 or 3 meters away from the window, so quite a dark spot in my house. Like I say, I've had this 4 years. In the first 3 years, it was only 2 or 3 feet high, so it didn't grow that much, probably only put on about 2 or 3 leaves on each stem per year, so it was really a slow growing plant. So I wanted a bit more growth out of it, so I brought it downstairs into my dining room, put it next to the window, and it's since put on, I'd say this year, probably 5 or 6 new leaves on each stem. So much happier, and it grows a lot quicker when you put it next to your window. The Tineke, I think that does require more light than this guy, simply because it's a variegated plant. So if you were to keep this guy in a dark place, then you might lose the delicate variegation in the leaves. So you can see the leaves have a kind of watercolor effect with like a white or beige trim around each of the leaves. That's interesting, so you want to keep that, and the best way to do that is to have it in a really bright spot in your house. Try not to keep it in direct sort of mid-afternoon sun. That will scorch the leaves and you might get some yellowing edges and some brown tips. I think it can tolerate some morning sun. I have both of these guys in morning sun and it seems quite happy. Another really important aspect to this plant, to the care that we're going to give it, is soil. Soil is really important. It doesn't like wet feet at all, any Ficus Elastica as far as I'm aware. So that means that we need to make sure we're drying out the soil in between waterings. So I water my ficuses probably once every 2 weeks in the summer, which is less regularly than my other houseplants. I normally do once a week for my houseplant collection. These guys are water infrequently because they don't like wet feet. They don't like to have a soggy soil. So as well as watering infrequently, it's really important to have a really well draining soil. So my mix is generally compost mixed with perlite. So it's important we lighten our soil so that water can freely drain from the soil and it doesn't stay in the soil. The moisture doesn't stay in the soil. That'll affect the roots of the plant. So normally in my videos I say I have about a 20%, 30% perlite to soil mix, but with these guys I put a little bit extra perlite just to increase that drainage and so it has a happier root system. You don't really want your houseplant sitting in just compost. It can be a bit too dense for your houseplants, and that's particularly true with these guys, so just make sure you're adding an amendment to it to lighten the soil. With regards to watering, like I said, really doesn't like wet feet, so like I say, just Make sure the soil dries out in between waterings. I water mine once every 2 weeks. I do have a moisture meter just to double check on the soil, and I find that's quite important for this plant. So I only water when the moisture meter is reading dry, definitely not when it's moist. You do want to make sure that it is getting enough water during the summer. If you are tending to underwater your plants, then it will tell you by having droopy leaves, particularly at the base of the plants. In that case, just want to increase your watering just to perk it up again. If you're overwatering, which is probably more likely with this plants, then it's going to tell you by also drooping the leaves, maybe the leaves going a bit mushy, a bit yellow, and you might start to see some spotting in the leaves, some yellow and brown spotting. In that case, you want to take it out of the pots and re-pot it into some fresh soil, drier soil, and you just want to rein in the watering, make sure it doesn't have wet feet. With regards to fertilising, I don't fertilise this plant too often. It doesn't seem to respond that well to fertilising. It tends to grow quite nicely as long as it has a nice soil mix, free draining. But I do tend to fertilise with a liquid fertiliser, Miracle Grow, all-purpose. Probably do that once every couple of months just to give the leaves a fresh kind of pop, make sure that they're going to push out new growth. Fertiliser helps with that. I find that this guy, the leaves tend to respond a bit better to fertilising than the variegated leaves on the Tineke. This plant's not too fussy when it comes to humidity. I've not noticed any brown or yellowing edges around the leaves. You might find that during the winter if a plant likes a humid environment, such as a Califea. That will definitely show you that it's not getting enough humidity. But I have quite a lot of house plants in my house, and this is located near another bunch of plants near my east-facing window. So I think it is getting more humidity than it might do elsewhere in the house, just as a kind of group effect with the plants giving off humidity, giving each other humidity. But these plants will do fine during the winter with the central heating on, so there's no worries there. You don't need to treat it special. I wouldn't particularly buy a humidifier for these plants like you might do with a Califea. So generally not too fussy when it comes to humidity. It's a good idea to check the roots of the plant at least annually, particularly with these guys, because if you are overwatering the plant, then the roots are going to start to rot. So you just want to check on that yearly, just make sure they're doing okay. They should be nice and bright and not brown and going black and mushy. If that is the case, then obviously you need to kind of rescue the situation by repotting into some fresh, drier compost with perlite. If this plant is root bound, then it will tell you by becoming a little bit thirsty. You might find that you'll need to be watering your plant in the summer more often than normal. That's because the roots have kind of taken over the soil in the pot. There's no soil to grip onto the moisture, so it's just running out of moisture as soon as you pour it over it, basically. If you do find that your plant is root bound, where it's circling around the stem at the top, that's a bad situation to be in. You just want to untangle those roots a little bit to stop the circling, and then repot it into some fresh compost perlite mix. Propagating the Ficus Elastica can be done quite fussy maybe when it comes to propagation. Not all of them are always successful. I have in fact propagated this guy. I've not propagated this guy before. I'll be looking to do that this spring. I propagated this guy. You can see on here where I made the cut, and it turned into a few plants, I think 4, and this is the one I still have. I traded in the other ones. So with this, I made the cuts. You would expect it to branch out into at least 2 branches, but as you can see, it's only branched out into 1 there. And also it seems to have branched much further down, which is not really the desired effect that I wanted. I wanted 2 branches to grow equally from the top, so it kind of bushes out into a bit of more of a bushy tree formation. So with this guy, to propagate, you just want to take a stem piece underneath a leaf node, put it into whatever medium you're using, and it should grow roots. I'm probably going to cut this again where the old cut is, just to try and get it to branch out a bit better than it did the last time. I've not noticed any pests on this plant, on either of these plants, the Robusta to my right and the Tineke to the left. You just want to check the underneath of the leaves every now and then if you are concerned about pests. You just want to go through and check underneath for things like spider mites. You won't be able to see the spider mite, but you'll be able to see its webbing just where the leaves attach onto the stem. You'll see very fine webbing. In that case, you do have spider mites, which can be a bit of a problem because it can spread to your other house plants in your house, and you want to get rid of it as kind of quickly as possible. If that is the case, then you want to kind of take it outside and give it a good thorough wash down with quite a powerful spray. Just spray down all the leaves, the underside of the leaves, and then you want to thoroughly get rid of the soil that it's in, because that's where the spider mites are going to be living. You want to get rid of the soil thoroughly, make sure there's no eggs or anything, and then repot it. And then I'll keep my eye on it. I'd maybe keep it away from my other houseplants for a week or so, just to check that the spider mites have definitely gone. Spider mites might be a problem, mealybugs as well, or you could also get fungus gnats in the soil. I've done a video on how to get rid of fungus gnats. I'll leave that in the description. You just want to be checking for fungus gnats in the soil. If you disturb the soil, the topsoil layer, and you see little black insects kind of flying and jumping around, and that's fungus gnats. So it lays eggs in the top 2 inches of moist soil, so you just want to make sure that you're not overwatering the plant, so you're leaving the soil to dry out, and that will deter the fungus gnat from entering the soil and laying its eggs, which is kind of the first prevention step for fungus gnats. But apart from that though, I don't think there's too many issues with regards to pests with Ficus Elastica. Seems like quite a robust plant. So there you have it guys, that is my care guide for the Ficus Elastica. I've got the Robusta to my right and the Tineke to my left. If you follow these steps, you'll have a nice, vibrant, happy houseplant. I do recommend you add this plant to your collection if you haven't already. It's a really nice plant, especially the Tineke with the watercolour light leaves, but I also like the Robusta, very striking kind of shape, and I really like that. If you like the video, then please leave a like on it, it really helps me out. If you're interested in this kind of thing, then please subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos. I've got a playlist on how to propagate plants. I'll be looking to propagate these guys in the coming videos, so please subscribe to be notified when that comes out. If you have any questions about this plant or anything I've said in this video, then do leave it in the comments and I'll respond, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.